Hello everyone, my name is Jeremy Walsh. I'm the Director of Support for BNI Connect for North America and South America, and I help out with the rest of the world as well. Today's webinar is a BNI Connect for chapter leadership teams, and what we hope to do in today's webinar is to go through and show you a lot of the functionality that's available to a lot to members, but also specifically to do with the various positions within the leadership team: president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, mentor, coordinator, etc. Today's webinar is being recorded. It will be made available afterwards. We'll send out a link to all the attendees and registrants so that you can review this webinar at a later time or pass it along to fellow chapter members. If you have any questions during today's webinar, there's a couple of ways that we can do that. If you have a microphone on your computer, or if you're dialed in with a telephone, just raise your hand and I'd be happy to open up your microphone and you can ask your question directly. If you are not able to do that, there's also a questions interface as part of the GoToWebinar software. You can type in your question and I'll be happy to answer your question as we're going along. If it's pertaining to what we're talking about, I'll answer it right then. Otherwise, we should have about 15 minutes or so at the end of this webinar to answer any questions at all that you have about BNI Connect, whether it's related to the stuff that we covered today or even if it's just a question in general that you have about the system. I'm happy to stay on the webinar. We are scheduled for an hour, but I'm happy to stay on as long as we have questions. So with that in mind, let's get started. And before we get into some of the leadership team functions, as you guys are stepping into new leadership team positions or as members of the leadership team, one of the best things you can do to set a good example for all of your other chapter members is to really make sure you go in and fill out your profile. Make sure that all of the information is up there, that your gains profile, your picture, your business information. And one of the best reasons for this is that it is a referral tool. We talk a lot in BNI about visibility and credibility equals profitability. And let me tell you a quick story. One thing that you may or may not know is that every member of BNI that's on BNI Connect has a member profile that's accessible to all other BNI members around the world from the inside of the system, meaning once you log into BNI Connect, but also on the outside of the system. Through the regional websites, everybody has a member page. That means that as people are Googling your name or looking for products and services, they can find you on the internet, and they can also search your regional website for referrals when they're looking for people to do business with. Something happened to me a couple of months ago. I was sitting here in my office working on BNI Connect, and a client of mine for my regular business walked in and said, "Hey, I'm looking for a referral. I need a bookkeeper. I have an in-house bookkeeper, but they need to learn a couple of things. Do you have anybody that you could refer to me to help my bookkeeper out?" And I said, "Wow, how often does that happen? A referral just landed in my lap. Cool." I said, "Great, yeah, I have somebody in my chapter." So he was standing here over my shoulder, and I went to my regional website. So I went to bniri.com, and I wanted to pull up his profile on BNI Connect so I could actually print it out and give it to my client as a little bit better than a business card. So the person in my chapter, his name happens to be Glenn Zabolis, and I looked him up, and here's his member page. Now, it has a picture on it. It has what town he's in. It has one sentence about his business and the chapter that he's in. Now, that's good, but unfortunately, it didn't have anything else on it. It didn't have any contact information, as social media links, or it wasn't a great credibility booster to be able to just print this out and hand it off. So, unfortunately, my business card holder was on the front seat of my car, and I'm sitting here in my office. So I ended up pulling out a yellow sticky note and writing the phone number down on a piece of paper. But in contrast, if somebody was looking for me on the regional website, or if somebody was Googling my services and came across this page, there'd be a lot more information on there. So aside from my picture, it also has my phone numbers. It has the link to my website. It has my office and my physical location, all of my social media networking links, the ability to send me a message, a little bit more about my business, and my TOPS profile is what this is called. Now, I have a webinar dedicated just to filling out your profile, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but it's a good idea to set that good example for your chapter and really increase your visibility and credibility by having this information filled out. Now, where you find this information to fill this out is on your My Account button. This is after you log into BNI Connect. You click on the My Account button, and this will bring you to all the information that you can input about yourself. So again, on the first page, this is just all your contact, your name, your company name. This is the My Business that appears here on the public website. So this information in this blue box here is whatever you enter into this box here, the My Business information. Keywords, you want to spend some time on that, picking out good keywords because that's how people find you. And then the other information here on the website, so there's this here, the ideal referral, top product, top problem solved. All of that information is on the Bio tab. So if you scroll down to the bottom of the Bio tab, that's called the Tops profile. And the Tops profile is what shows up on your public website, your public page. So take some time filling that information out. And finally, your contact information, that's under contact details. You can put a whole bunch of phone numbers in, your website address, and your social media links. These are the important things that you want because those are the things that are showing up here. Now, if you have a home business and you're worried about your home address showing up here, what you may want to do instead is to just take out the address under the first address one. You have your billing address and then you have your regular address, and just put in something like private or by appointment only or a P.O. box if you happen to have one. Now, once I update this information, this is immediate. So I'm going to just refresh this page, and you can see now that my address has changed private by appointment only, but it still retains the rest of my contact information that I think is important to have up there, such as my phone number, my mobile number, my social media links, etc. So again, take some time, fill out your profile, and set a good example for your chapters. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you can do as a leadership team. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend some time, I'm going to show you some common functions that you have available to you, and then I'm going to show you some specific functions that are related to positions. And the reason that I'm going to do that is because the way that the default permissions are in BNI Connect is that you guys can kind of back each other up as a leadership team. So I'm sure that nobody on your leadership team has ever missed a meeting in the 6 or 12 months that you're serving the position. But if it should happen that your vice president happens to miss a meeting, well, as a president or as a secretary-treasurer, you guys actually have access to go in and enter a POMS report. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Or you might be able to, if there's something wrong with the speaker rotation, you can jump right in there and fix that as well. So I'm going to show you some of those functions. I'm also going to show you a couple of things that you may not be aware of that are available in the system. So the first place we're going to go, the place that you go to do stuff, you'll notice that you'll see some options up here. We have network, operations, reports, tools, and admin. Now, don't freak out if you don't see some of these options. It depends on your access levels. Now, I'm a system administrator, so I see all of the options, but you'll just be able to see the things that you have access to. Most of you guys are going to be able to see, at the very least, network, operations, and reports. And when you click on those, you may only see operations chapter. So we're going to start there under operations chapter. Now, operations is where you go to do stuff, as opposed to reports, which is where you're going to go to kind of see the results and see the feedback. Under operations chapter, we're going to see a bunch of different options here. We have the managing visitors, we have meeting management, managing memberships, managing goals, the mentoring program, and create email. I'm going to start at the bottom here with create email. And this is one of the more often used processes within the system, and that you can now create emails a lot easier. One of the things I always struggled with, now I'm still a member, I've been a member of BNI for about 11 years now, but before BNI Connect, I always found it a struggle to keep in touch with my chapter. Whether I was in a leadership team position or whether I was just a regular member, if I wanted to get an email out to my whole chapter, I used to go through my Microsoft Outlook and try to find the last group message that was sent and copy and paste all the people, and you always end up missing somebody, either the new member that just joined a couple of weeks ago, or you end up emailing somebody that had dropped out a few weeks before that. So if you go to Operations Chapter and go to Create Email, there's now an easy way to do that. There's a button here that says Email My Chapter. So when we do that, what it's going to do is it's going to pull up the email addresses of everybody that's in your chapter. And all you need to do is to click on them. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch over to Antarctica here, so I'm not pulling up anybody's private information, into the Burr chapter. So if I click on Email My Chapter, this is going to pull up a list of all of the current members of the chapter and their email addresses. Now, all you have to do from here is just highlight them. You can right-click and choose Copy, or press Control-C on your keyboard, or the mouse symbol and the C if you happen to be on a Mac. Press Copy, and then start a new email in whatever your favorite email program is, whether that's Outlook or Outlook Express or Gmail or Yahoo or AOL. And you can very easily get the email addresses for your chapter without having to hunt around for them for a long time. So again, that's under Operations Chapter, Create Email, and Email My Chapter. While we're on the subject of emails, there's a couple of other things that you may find interesting in here. The second option here is Email Visitor Invitation. Now, as a chapter member, if you've ever struggled sending an invite to people, this is a very, very easy way to invite visitors to your chapter. You can use this whether you're inviting a single person, or let's say that you're having a stack day for your chapter, you're having a visitors day for your chapter. You can send out invitations and they'll automatically include a bunch of information. Let's see how that works. I'm going to click on Email Visitor Invitation, and all you have to do is fill out a couple of short pieces of information. So I'm going to email Joe Smith and their company name and their email address. Now I'm going to use my own email address here. You're welcome to try this out and do the same thing. Just put your own email address in. And a short personal message. So I'm going to put in, it was great seeing you at the Chamber networking event. Please join me at my chapter meeting. Once I click Send, it's going to take this information and automatically create an email and send it to whatever email address you have listed here. So once I click Send, that is on its way. The email was sent successfully, and I actually already have this email in my inbox. So here's the email, and it is, you should be able to see it now. The email has a nice graphic at the top of it that is a BNI branded message. It has the Dear Joe, that's the person that I invited. It's got the message that I put in. It was great seeing you at the Chamber networking event. Please join me at my chapter meeting. And then the rest of the information is inserted automatically by the system. So we are cordially invited to the name of the chapter. It tells you where they meet, what the address is, what day, and what time. So you don't have to type this stuff out every single time you want to invite somebody to your chapter. Some very basic information about what BNI is, and a call to action. Please let us know if you're going to attend, and please come to the meeting. And it's signed by you. And you'll notice that if you look up here in the From line, it is coming from me. And it came today, Tuesday, at 1:15, a couple of seconds after I sent it. So give it a try. You can try that one out yourself and see if it see how it looks and see how it works. And then going back to this create email, there's one final thing that we can do, and that is to email chapter visitors. Now, if you're using the visitor entry function, what you're doing is you're essentially creating a visitor database for your chapter, in which case you can now go back to this visitor database and contact them, follow up with them, see who's turning into members, putting in applications without having to re-enter all their information each time. So once we click on the email chapter visitors, it's going to bring up a little search function here. So you can choose a date. I'm going to go back to January of this year. So I'm going to take a look at all the visitors that have visited this Antarctica chapter. Now, if you're doing a Visitor's Day or if you're just doing a follow-up, you can just choose everything. Now, if you're doing a stack day where you're concentrating on just one particular profession, maybe you only want to invite all of the accountant visitors back to visit the chapter. Or you can further define that with any of the secondary categories. Once you click Next, it's going to pull up all of those visitors that match the search criteria that you chose. And just like the emailing your chapter, you can go in and select them, copy them, and paste them into whatever email program it is that you are using. So that brings up a good point. So if we go back to Operation Chapter here, in order for the visitor being able to email visitors to be functional, you do have to enter your visitors into the system. And the place to do that is when a visitor visits your chapter, there's this Manage Visitor function. Now, talk to your regional office, your executive director, your director consultant for your chapter. Different regions handle this differently. In some cases, it's the leadership team that's going to enter the visitors into the system. Some cases, it's the visitor hosts that are going to enter visitors in the system. Some regions have a designated member that's going to enter the visitors into the system. But the way that you enter visitors is by going to Operations, Chapter, Manage Visitor, and then we're going to add a visitor. From here, it's pretty straightforward. We're just going to fill out the information about this visitor. So your chapter should be selected here. You're going to select what industry they are. Now, the industry is the top level category. So accounting or appraisals or education, and it's a pretty big long list. Of course, there's always an unknown if you don't know what it is or you don't see what it is. So I'm going to choose real estate, and then the classification will change depending on which primary industry you chose. So we're going to say that this is a title and escrow person. You can choose who invited them, so this will pull up a list of all the members of your chapter so that you can give credit to whoever invited them. You can choose the date that they visited. Notice that only this chapter in Antarctica happens to meet on Mondays, so I only have Mondays as an option. And we're just going to put their contact name and information in. So this was John Smith, and the company name, their address, the city, the state, the country, phone number, and any other information you have. One thing that you may or may not know is that if you have the email address for this person and you enter an email here, what's going to happen is that this person will get a thank you for visiting the chapter email. This is an automated system email that as long as you put the person's email address in here, they will get that email. If you leave this blank, then the system has no email to send it to, so it'll skip that part. So make sure that you put an email address in here and then click Submit. Now, once you start entering visitors in, they'll show up on the visitor report, and you'll also be able to use the tool I just showed you a minute ago where you can follow up with your visitors by getting their email addresses from the system. Once you've entered visitors in, you can manage the visitors, and you do this by clicking on Operations Chapter and then Manage Visitor. So first we're going to search the database for the visitors that have been entered. So I'm just going to look at the visitors for this particular month and click Go, and there's just one. We have John Smith here. From here you can go in and we can edit the visitor. If we click on Edit Visitor, it's going to show us the different options that we just filled out a few seconds ago. So if you made a mistake, or maybe you have more information now, maybe they changed their phone number or you have a different email address for them, you can enter that in. Let's say they come to visit a second time. You can put that into the notes. And you can click Submit, and that'll save it. I'm going to go back and search the visitors again here. And you can see we have John Smith still. The other buttons that are on here will depend on usage, depending on your region. So the next button here is to convert to prospect. I recommend staying away from that button unless you are a director consultant or an executive director, because that puts it into a different database. Similar to the visitor database, there's a prospect database. The next one is convert to member. So this person has put in an application and you're now going to convert them to a member. Again, access to this function is defined by region. And then you can remove the visitor also. So let's say you've been following up with a visitor and say, hey, please don't contact me anymore. You can always remove them from the visitor database by clicking this delete button. So I'm going to go back to chapter operations here. And the next function is the meeting management. And these are the more common functions that, at least for you vice presidents that are on the line, you guys will be doing this regularly. And it has to do with entering POMs. And I'm going to go through, I'm going to show you guys how to enter a POMs report. And again, if you're a president, you're a secretary treasurer, more than likely you have access to this function. Do your vice president a favor if they happen to ever not be there during a meeting. Offer to enter the POMs for them. It'll increase your credibility with your vice president right away. So the way to enter a POMs report is to go to Meeting Management and then click on Enter POMs. From here, we just need to select the meeting date. So I'm going to enter the POMs report for the meeting that was yesterday up here in the Burr chapter. And we click on Enter POMs. This will pull up a list of all of the members in your chapter, and it'll give you the opportunity to enter the various POMs numbers. Of course, POMs stands for present, absent, late, medical leave, and substitute. Now, RGI is referrals given inside, or inside referrals. What inside referrals are the Tier 1 referrals. In other words, you are passing yourself as a referral to somebody else in the chapter. So it's the very first possible level of a referral. It's an inside the chapter referral. RGO is referrals given outside. So I've referred anybody else in my network. It could be my spouse, it could be a family member, it could be a client, it could be anybody else other than myself is an outside or a Tier 2 or higher referral. Same thing for received and inside and outside. I received a referral of another chapter member, or I received a referral of somebody outside the chapter. Visitors is how many visitors the person brought that week. One-to-ones is how many one-to-ones the member did. Thank you for closed business is the amount of business they were thanked for. And CEUs is chapter education units. Some regions are using this now. It's to record the amount of outside training that you've been through outside of your chapter meetings, such as member success programs, leadership team training, webinars such as this, books that you've read, SuccessNet, BNI podcasts, things like that. If you're unsure how that works, please talk with your director consultant or your executive director, and they'll be able to explain how the CEUs work in your region. Filling out a POMS report is really just a matter of going through every member of the chapter, selecting whether they were present or absent or late, the number of referrals given, received, the number of visitors, the number of one-to-ones, thank you for closed business, and the CEUs. And we just go through the list for each member. Now, I know as having done this as a vice president in the past, you're usually sitting there with a stack of slips. So if you find it easier, you can either sort it by first name. Clicking the first name button will sort it by first name. And then clicking the last name button will then resort it by last name. So as you're hunting and pecking through the list, you can resort it as often as you'd like to be able to find those members. And just do remember, you do need to scroll over a little bit to get to that CEU columns. Once you're done entering in all of the referrals, visitors, one-to-ones, thank you for closed business, and CEUs, you can make any comments you'd like about the meeting. And then you could do a couple of things. If you submit the POMS, that will close off that POMS report and enter it in for totaling. The second thing is mark as a holiday. So if you did not meet that week because it was a holiday week, you can mark that POMS report and close it out as an empty POMS report. If you get halfway through going through your slips and you need to come back to it at a later time, click on Save as Draft. And what that'll do is it'll save all the figures that you've entered and allow you to reopen it later to enter in the remaining numbers. Or if you completely mess it up and want to come back to it another time, click on Discard POMS. One other thing that you may want to think about is that there's this button here up at the top, Print POMS Sheet. Now, some people find it easier rather than sorting through the referral slips that are in front of you and then entering it online. This is a form that allows you to fill it out on a piece of paper so you can put tick marks against the various entries and then be able to transfer that over to the system a little bit easier. So once I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and submit the POMS report. Are you sure you want to submit it? Yes, I do. And now it's going to give you a review. If you have access to it and you're looking through it and you realize you made a mistake, there's always this Unlock POMS option. And again, if you don't see this button here, you do need to ask your region to perform that function. And once we're done with that, we can click the back button, or we can go back to Operations Chapter. Now, if you'd like to review any individual POMS reports for accuracy or to go back and unlock them at a later time, or if you saved one as a draft and you need to go back and complete it, the place to do that is through the View POMS Summary. So again, we need to enter a date. You can go back as far in history as you'd like, and it will show you all of the reports that have been entered from that date. If you'd like to see all of the entries on one page or more of them on one page, there is a drop down here. So I can choose to show 10, 25, 50, or 100 entries so that I'm scrolling on one screen instead of going from page to page. If you had saved it as a draft and you need to go back and complete it, you'll see it listed here as a draft. If it was one that you threw away, you'll see it as discarded. If you saved one as a holiday, it would be listed here. And then all the rest of them are completed, which means that they were saved successfully. If you'd like to go back and review on any of them, just click on the word completed, draft, or discarded, or holiday. And this will give you the results of that POMS report. Again, if you have permission to do so, if you need to correct an error, there's an Unlock POMS button here, which would allow you to then go in and edit it and resubmit the POMS. Going back to Operations Chapter, so that covered what the vice presidents are going to do on a weekly basis. One of the things that the secretary treasurers are going to be doing is to making sure that your speaker rotation is up to date within the system. Now, the reason that we want to do this is really twofold. Once you enter your speakers into the system, a couple of things happen. Now, the first thing that happens is I'm going to go to our chapter website, and every chapter that is on BNI Connect in the world has your very own page. Now, this page is editable by a chapter webmaster. That can be you. It could be somebody that you assign in the chapter. That can go in and you guys can edit all of this text. You can edit the pictures. You can see that we put our Facebook page links on here. And then you can see here it's also going to list the next 4 weeks of speakers. So we happen to have 2 speakers every week in our chapter, so you'll see both speakers listed here. So I can see that this upcoming week we have Michael Ferry and Nicholas Tedford, and the following week Len and David, and so on and so forth. So that happens automatically as soon as you put the speakers into the system. Now, the second thing that happens is that the speakers will get reminders that they're speaking. So 6 days before your meeting, the speaker will get a reminder saying, by the way, you're speaking in 6 days. Prepare your material and bring a door prize. They'll get a second reminder 3 days before the meeting. On top of that, 3 days before the meeting, you as a secretary treasurer will also get a reminder of who it is that's speaking at that week's meeting. Entering speakers is done by clicking on Meeting Management, View, Edit Speakers. We're going to choose a date to look at our speakers from. And we can see that there's no speakers for this Antarctica chapter that have been entered into the system. So what we have to do is just click on Assign Speaker. We're going to choose the date that they're speaking, and we can only choose dates in the future. And from the drop-down, we're going to choose who it is that's going to be speaking. Now, you notice that all the chapter members are listed here, and there may be a few names on here that you don't recognize. Your director consultant should also show up in this list, as well as your executive director and your national director. So you just pick the person from the list, enter what topic they're going to be speaking about, and you can fill out more information on here if you'd like. One suggestion I have is that, I have a note here that we lost sound. Let me reconnect the sound here 1 second. And it looks like we're back. Thank you for that, Vita. One suggestion I have as far as the topic goes is one of the things that we do to invite visitors to our chapter is to invite for the speaker. So you can put something right in the topic here that would say, a great person to hear my talk would be. And fill in a couple of examples of who they'd like to invite. Once you submit that, they will be assigned, and again, they will start getting those email notifications. So we can now see them in the assigned list. If your chapter is set up to do 2 speakers in a week, you will be allowed to choose that date again. And if your chapter is not allowed to do 2 speakers, you will get an error message saying that the slots are full for that day. If you need to remove the speaker for that week and put somebody else in, you can do that by clicking this Remove Speaker button. Or if you'd like to go in and edit what their topic is, you can do that as well. Do we have any questions so far on anything? If so, please feel free to drop a question into the question box. So going back to the operations chapter, a couple of other functions that I'd like to show you. There's a mentoring program that is part of BNI Connect as well. And what the mentoring program does is if you enter the mentors and the mentee pairs into the system, they'll get an automated email every week for about 8 weeks, letting them know what they should be talking about on a weekly basis. So it guides them through the whole mentoring program. To assign a mentor and a mentee pair, it's very similar to assigning a speaker. So we're going to go to Operations Chapter, Mentoring Program, and we're going to click on Assign Mentor Mentee. Now we just choose the date that you'd like them to start receiving emails. You're going to select who the mentor is, and you're going to select who the mentee is. Once I click Submit, they'll be assigned the mentor-mentee pair, and on the date that you specify, they'll start receiving those emails. If you'd like to see who's been assigned as a mentor or mentee currently and or in the past, we can go through and we can go back in time if we'd like to. And we can see the people who have been assigned the mentors and the mentees. Now, once a campaign has started or once it's over, we can't really do anything about it. We can't change it. We can't edit it. We can't delete it. Anything that's set for the future, you can go in and either edit the mentor-mentee pair and choose somebody else, or you can cancel that mentor-mentee pair as well. Now, what these look like, let me see if I can pull up an example here of what these mentor-mentee emails look like. And here we go. So this is actually the email. Oh, looks like you lost my window here. This is actually the email that they get the first week that they are part of the Mentor-Mentee program. So welcome to the Mentor program. It tells them what the topics for the week are, what the mentors should be doing, and what the mentees should be doing. And then the second week's email, this is what they'll be getting and telling what they should be talking about. Now, each week it also comes with an attachment. And this is the first week's attachment. So it gives you some reading materials and some more information about what they should be working on that week. Let me switch back over to my other window. And I do see a couple of questions here. One comment from Barbara Olson. Barbara, thank you for being here today. I don't know if you covered that data in a draft POMS report does not get added into the chapter totals. That is correct. When a POMS report is entered in, it has to be submitted and finalized before it shows up in any of the totals. So in any of the reports or in the chapter goals program, you do have to submit and save that POMS report before it is captured in any of the totals. The draft ones will be excluded from those reports. And Jim asks, will these functions be available to the president as well as their leadership team? Jim, the default permissions are that most of this stuff is available to the entire leadership team, meaning the president, the vice president, and the secretary-treasurer. However, regions do have the ability to customize this. So if you don't see something, just ask. Get in touch with your director consultant, get in touch with your executive director. There may be programs that may not be utilized in your particular region or may not be rolled out yet. So just ask and we'll let you know. Elizabeth asks, my question is about inviting a guest. Does the system inviting visitors, does the system just the visitors that come to a BNI meeting, or is it open to the public? Now, when we go into inviting when we send the visitor invitation, that can go to anybody. You can send that to anybody in the world. All you have to do is put in the email address and it'll go to whoever you send it to. If you're talking about the visitors that you're entering into the system, again, once you enter them, the email will go out to anybody, and you can utilize those email addresses to invite people. The visitors aren't members yet, so they don't have any access to the BNI Connect system. We just have their contact information in there. Not really sure if I understood or if I answered your question there, but if you have a follow-up, I'm happy to try to clarify that further. Okay. So going back to operations chapter, there's one more chapter operation that I'm going to very, very briefly touch upon. And the reason I'm only going to very briefly touch upon it is that it is an incredibly complex part of it. I have a webinar coming up on October 1st at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. That is going to cover only this part of it, which is the goals program. So if we click on Manage Goals, what this does is it gives your chapter the ability to set up a long-term goal program for your chapter. And you can go through and define what you'd like to accomplish, and then it'll track your progress going back into the POMS reports. So the way that you enter goals is by going to Operations Region, Manage Goals, and then Enter Chapter Goals. By default, it's going to choose the upcoming 6-month BNI period, in this case October 1st. Now you can put in a long-term vision and a mission statement. And then click Go. Now what this is going to do is pull up the next 6 months worth of goals. Now these are all the chapter success factors that you can track within the system. You can track your attendance percentage, your total number of one-to-ones, your CEUs, your visitors, your new memberships, your number of members in the chapter, the number of referrals, and the thank you for closed business. And what you really need to do is just go in and per month decide what you want those goals to be. The next two things per goal is mechanisms. And those are really coming up with ideas on how you're going to achieve those goals. For example, in the few examples that I have here, for October, we wanted a goal of 95% attendance. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to do that by making sure that the membership committee is sending out the control letters. And we're also going to do that by maybe doing some educational moments about the importance of showing up to the chapter meeting. Now, in November, we have a goal, a slightly higher goal of 96%. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to start the BNI game, and we're going to have a Bring Your Substitute Day. Now, if you're looking for ideas, some mechanisms, there is a button up here that says Chapter Goal Guide. If we click on that, it'll pull up a nice little document that has a whole bunch of different mechanisms that give you some ideas for what you can use for mechanisms. For example, for increasing CEUs, you could make sure that everybody attends the MSP within 30 days. You can promote the availability of training through your regional website. So these are, again, just ideas to spark to spark your interest in this, but you can come up with your own ideas as well. And again, if you'd like some more information about this particular function, again, we have a whole webinar dedicated to it on October 1st, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. Check your regional calendar and sign up for that one. Okay, we have about 13 minutes left in the official program. What I'd like to show you guys, is there any more questions on anything related to the operations, the to do things in your chapter? If not, I'd like to touch upon a couple of the reports that are in the system. So going into reports, I'm going to click on Reports, Chapter. And these are all of the chapter level reports that are available. Most of the time, in most cases, all of these reports are available to everybody in your chapter. So there's no specific reports when it comes to leadership teams. It's more, as a leadership team, there may be a couple of reports that you use more than the average chapter member. And let me show you a couple of them that happen to be my favorite. Some of them are self-explanatory. Some of them you may not, they may not be so obvious as to what they're for. Obviously, the chapter roster report, that one is just your chapter roster. The great thing about this report, though, is that it has your entire leadership team, including all of the support positions, such as educational coordinator, mentoring coordinator, membership committee. It has all of those things listed with contact information, so it's easy to find the people that's in the various positions and be able to get in contact with them. And the same thing for your regional leadership, as far as your director consultant and your area director consultant and your ambassador. It'll then also show you a full list of your members with a quick count of the number of members that you have in the chapter, a snapshot of the last 90 days of your POMS reports, and again, contact numbers for all of your chapter. All of the reports in BNI Connect, you can do a couple of things with them. You can either export them to Excel, or you can print them on a regular piece of paper. Once you decide to print them, you can choose portrait, landscape, do anything you'd like with it. And also, once you export it, if you need to be able to squeeze it onto one piece of paper, or it has too much information, or you'd like to add more information to it, really exporting is your best option. What that'll do is it'll bring it into an Excel format. And let me switch over to Excel here. And this is what it'll look like when it comes into the Excel screen. And from here, you can do things like increase the font, you can get rid of rows, you can highlight stuff, bold stuff, make columns bigger. If you would really like to customize the look and layout of the report, this is the best way to do it. Okay, switching back over here. The membership dues report, this is the one that as a vice president or as a membership committee, you'll probably be using this report most often. And to do this, by default, it's going to choose today as the report date. And we just click Go. You'll notice it'll, by default, sort it by due date. As a leadership team, you guys will kind of always show up here at the top of the list because your dues are being compensated while you are in office. So this will show you that what the term plus means is that when your term ends, whether that is by completing the full length of the term, that's 6 months or a year, but when the term ends, you will have 3 months left or 24 months left on your membership. So again, your membership is paused. When you come out, you'll have 3 months left. Then it'll highlight the people that are upcoming, that are due next month. And then it'll show you in ascending order all of the people that are due in the upcoming months. This is a great report for the membership committees that are doing reviews of memberships, either 3 months or 6 months even in some cases before the membership is due. The Summary POMS report is the bread and butter for the chapter as far as finding out return on investment in chapter activity. You can run this report for any length of time you want. So you can run the report from the inception of your chapter. You can run the report for a week, a month, a year, 10 years. And it'll just give you all of the POMS data, all of the people that were in the chapter during that period of time, and all of the totals. Now, one thing you may notice in the Summary POMS report is that you'll see some people that may not be in your chapter right now. And the reason for that is that if I ran this report for, let's say I run the report for 2 years, well, it's going to show the data for the people that were in the chapter 2 years ago as well. Now, one of the chapters here one of the reports here that may not be obvious, and this is for if we happen to have any chapter growth coordinators or visitor hosts on the call, but as you're strategizing your visitors days and your stack days, the classifications not in chapter is a great report for coming up with ideas on who to invite to your chapter meeting. They should actually just rename this one Who to Invite Report. If I click on the Go button, what this is going to do is to compare this chapter, my chapter, with all of the other chapters in the region and find out what categories are missing in our chapter that are popular throughout the region. So other chapters have this category, but my chapter doesn't. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to switch to the United States here, just so I can give you some real data. And I'm going to go to my own personal region. I'm going to go to my own personal chapter and show you what this report looks like. And while I'm doing that, Kelly asks, can any member come to the Summary POMS report to see their progress? Yes, Kelly. Any member has access to the POMS report. Again, unless your region has that turned off, any member, once they log into BNI Connect, will have access to the Summary POMS report. But if you, just in 1 second, I'm going to show you an even better report that members can access for their own personal progress. Going back to this Who Should I Invite report of the classifications not in chapter, what we can see here is that for my chapter, if I was strategizing who do I want to invite to my chapter, I would come to this report and I can see that our chapter does not have a property and casualty person in our chapter. However, there's 17 other chapters in our region that have a property and casualty person. So that tells me a couple of things. It tells me that it's a very popular category in the region. If 17 other chapters have this category, it's probably working out pretty well for them. So, say lost sound again. Let me reset that. All right, hopefully my sound is back. And the other reason that this is good is because if you have relationships with other chapters, you can know that maybe they'll forward their visitors who can't join their chapter over to your chapter. The other great thing about this is, again, as you're brainstorming, this is a really, really long list. So we can scroll down for pages and pages. And anybody that says that they can't figure out who they could possibly invite, I tell you, please come and take a look at this list, and this should give you a couple of ideas of all the different professions, at least that are listed in BNI. So to answer your question about tracking your progress in BNI, my absolute favorite personal report within this system is called the Personal POMS Report. Now, if I go to the Personal POMS Report, what you do is you select your name from the list. And yes, you can run this for other members of your chapter as well. Now, I'm going to choose myself. Now, let's say I want to know, I've been a member since 2002. I'd like to know how I'm doing. So I'm going to go back just to January 2002, and I'm going to go through this month. And now when I click go, it's going to go through all of the POMS reports that have ever been entered in my chapter and pull my information out of there. So we can see that my chapter actually started entering POMS data in 2004, even though I've been a member since 2002. And we can go through week by week and follow the progress. And then when we get all the way down to the bottom, it will show you your totals. So it's a great way to go through and really check your return on investment and see what your progress is without having to necessarily decode a POMS report to just kind of find your name each time. So that's why this is one of my favorite reports in the system. Now for the VPs that are online, one of your reports, as you give your weekly VP report in the meeting, there is a report for that in BNI Connect, and it's right here. It's called the VP report, where you can just select the month and click go. And what it'll do is it'll give you a week by week summary of your POMS reports. I'm going to go back and select last month, just so we have a more complete picture of what that looks like. And here we go. So it'll show you your POMS report data. So that's week 1, that's week 2, week 3, and week 4. And if we scroll over, it gives us a totals as well. And if I scroll this report down to the bottom, it'll give us our totals, our weekly totals, our monthly totals, and then our cumulative totals. So this puts all that, your VP report, right at your fingertip. And finally, the one report that I'm going to show you is a great report for finding trends in your chapter. And as a membership committee member or as the vice president, this would be a great report for you to look at once in a while. It's called the POMS Attendance Report. And what this will do is it takes just the present, absent, late medical substitute, and it puts it in a graph for you. So you can actually look at this and kind of start seeing trends, or really look at patterns to find out, if somebody might be struggling in your chapter. So if all of a sudden you start seeing somebody that has a whole lot of reds in their line, it might be a concern. You may want to reach out to that member to help them out. Or somebody that has a lot of L's. One thing that we find a lot in BNI is that somebody that all of a sudden now starts not having anything next to them because they've dropped out is usually preceded by a lot of absences before that. So it's something to keep your eye on as a leadership team if you'd like to be able to be proactive and help your members within your chapter. So we are at the top of the hour now, and what I'd like to do is thank everybody for their time. If you have any questions, again, I am happy to stay on this webinar as long as people have questions, but in the interest of being sure to end on time, I would like to say that anybody that doesn't have any questions, again, thank you for your time and being here today. But again, I'm happy to hang out and answer any other questions that you might have. While you're thinking of your questions, I'm going to ask for 2 more favors from you. The first of which is if you have any questions after you leave the webinar today, within BNI Connect, click on this little question mark. This is brings you to the support page. And once you get to the support page, you will see all of our previously listed webinars and all of our upcoming webinars right here on the home screen. Now, if you'd like to review, we usually have, for example, the BNI Connect social media one. We have one coming up on the 27th. If you wanted to see the previous one, we have the link to the recording right there underneath it. And the same thing for this leadership team ones. We have a previously recorded one listed right here. If you scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, you'll also see a number of training things, uploaded webinars, answers to your questions. If you forgot anything about today's webinar, anything under chapter operations is listed here. Anything under the reports is listed here. And when we go through them and have nice walkthroughs, for example, if you forget how to email your chapter, right here you have a quick guide on what to click on and how to go through and do it. Finally, if you could take a moment, go to go to facebook.com/BNI Connect Global. And this will bring you to our Facebook page. And what we would absolutely love is if you could go and like us there, because we do webinar announcements, we do release announcements right here for those of you that are still on the call. Go to our Facebook page, and the post that I did the other day gives you a sneak peek in what's coming in the next version. And in the next version, all the stuff I showed you about entering POMS reports gets a lot easier because you'll be able to pass electronic referrals. So go take a look at that. Go take a look at the sneak peek. Give us a like. Follow us. If you like today's webinar, leave us a post, send us an email, and we're always here to help. If you have any additional questions, again, go to support.bniconnect.com. Take a look through the training material, or if you need a question answered, just click on Submit a Request, and we'd be happy to answer your question. Again, thank you, everybody, for being here today. I'd like to thank you for your time. And I do have a couple of questions that just popped in. Kelly asks, I'm still struggling to get on the BNI Connect page. Can I reset my password to sign on more easily? Absolutely. If you're struggling resetting your password, go to the support page here, support.bniconnect.com. Click on this Submit a Request link. Put in your information, and we will help you to get your password reset. Okay? Happy to help out, Kelly. Excellent. Do we have any other questions? Barbara, I see your hand up. Did you want me to open up your microphone? Barbara, I have your microphone open. Nope. Okay. Again, thank you everybody for being here today. Remember to visit us on Facebook, check out our upcoming webinars, and happy connecting, everyone.